moving on to Facebook, we're all fairly familiar with Facebook, and whilst it may not be appropriate for some people in their experience, I would like to talk about a case study today of the Singapore Tattoo Festival. It started last year, and it's not a conference that I spoke at, but it's a really good case study of how Facebook can really work to help you build a virtual community before the conference takes place, so that when the time the conference comes around, you've got people who have already contacted each other online and built this virtual community, and then form a platform for them to stay in touch and to maintain those valuable relationships well after the conference is finished. So what the organiser of this conference did was that he set up a Facebook page 3 months before the event, and he didn't call it the Tattoo Fest Conference 2009 because that would date, and people aren't necessarily passionate about the conference itself. They're passionate about what the conference is talking about and the people that they're going to meet there, and their hobby or their passion or their work. So we called it Tattoo Pride for Tattoo Artistry because that is a group that can live on after the conference as well. He set that up. He set up a group with that name, and there's 6,300 members, and before the conference last year there was about 5,000 members. And what he did was form a group. I blacked out there. But anyway, what he did is he formed a group before the conference started, and so there's 5,000 people who were already meeting up and already keen to catch up during the conference. And by the time the conference came around, there was 15,000 people who registered for that event, and that was in part due to the fact that he'd set up that group so early that people had a chance to form genuine relationships and build that buzz, all without him actually having to do a whole lot. He just set up the framework and planted the seeds, and the delegates and the exhibitors and the speakers all got together and helped do the rest. And another thing you can actually do with a Facebook group is people can actually put up their photos. In the tattoo situation, people could take a photo of their tat and put it up on the Facebook, on the group page, and there was about 5,000 photos of people that had put their tattoos on there. So it's a great way to keep that relationship going with people before, during and after the conference. And then of course next year, well, the 2010 one's coming up, they then got the option, they've already got 6,000 active members, there's people that attended last year, and you've got that base number of people who already know about the conference to then make it easier to sell tickets. And again, you're not doing that much work, but you are setting it up so that it's easy for you in the long run. Alright, so who uses YouTube? Okay, I found that YouTube is often overlooked with organising conferences, and the reason why it should be considered is because it's such a useful and easy way to help sell tickets. I was recently at the National Growth Summit in Sydney, and they do it really well because rather than just having, well, they did have the brochures and the registration forms and everything, but they had videos as well. What they did is they filmed the keynote speaker, a guy called Vern Harnish, and on the homepage of their website they actually put a 10-minute clip of him explaining what would be coming up in the conference, so that you could hear it right from the horse's mouth what would be happening. And that was really good because as a delegate in this situation, I could watch the video, find out what was going to be spoken about, and made the decision to actually attend. And they also put a video of rave reviews from past delegates, which is again a really compelling way to convince people to part with their money and to come along to the conference. So it's really easy. You can just take along a little digital camera, get a few video testimonials, film the keynote speaker, and then pop that up on a YouTube channel so that it's good content, not only for your conference in future years as you build up the video content that you've got, but a really powerful way to convey to people the reasons why they should be attending your conference. You might actually choose to film some of the speakers as well as a resource, because there's so much information that people get during a conference, it's hard to remember it all. So if there's a few little highlights packages or whatnot put onto a YouTube video after the event, then that's a great way for a great value add for delegates to return back to your YouTube channel and find out more information. So event blogs. Who has experimented with using an event blog? Okay, this is probably the one where I got the most resistance, but I think it's the most valuable. The reason is everybody says, well, where do I find the time? I'm so busy doing everything else to make a blog, to put the content on the blog. Jesus, it's too hard. And I get that, But look at it a different way. It doesn't have to be you making the content, because as I've said, it's the delegates, it's the speakers, it's the exhibitors that are really keen on the topics, and they're the ones that are keen to produce the content for you. All you need to do is set it up in the first place early enough and let them do the hard work for you. I'm sure every single speaker would be happy to write a blog post about what they talk about. They get a backlink to their website, they get to position themselves as a thought leader. So all of a sudden you've got at least 10 or 15 posts you can start off with. The exhibitors, they're paying top dollar to put their trade booth at the conference as well. They're going to want bang for their buck, and if they can produce a blog post as well for your blog, then I'm sure they're going to take you up on the offer. And finally, the delegates as well. If you're really short of content, I'm sure there's a few guest posts you could get the delegates to write, maybe along the lines of what they're hoping to get from the conference, what their favourites, who they think their favourite speaker is going to be, all of those types of things. So doing an event blog doesn't have to be hard work, doesn't have to be difficult. WordPress is free to install. You can set it up on your website really quite easily, but set it up early and let other people do the hard work for you is the lesson. Back to AdTech. They developed what they call the AdTech Brain. It's essentially just a blog, but they've designed it so you can interact with the AdTech community. Now, what's so good about that is that Brain has been running for a couple of years now, so that each year the speakers write blog posts, the conference organiser conducts interviews with the speakers, gets testimonials and video testimonials from the delegates after the event, and it all goes onto this AdTech Brain. So as I hope I've argued and demonstrated that social media can make your life easier. It doesn't have to be a waste of time. If you approach it in this manner, where you don't see it as a burden, but you see it as a ticket to freedom, I guess, so that you can focus on all the other things that you have to do and let the delegates and the other people do some work for you. Now, the final social media channel that I'd like to talk about, LinkedIn. Who was on LinkedIn again? Okay, so as you can see, most people are on it already. I guess you'd probably describe it as Facebook, but for work. So you might choose to go LinkedIn over Facebook if you didn't have the time, that their functionality is much the same. But the example I'd like to show is Networks Events. Now, they run monthly networking events, and they formed a LinkedIn group. So as you can see, it's all about getting real people into a community that starts online, and then that translates to meeting at the conference events. So the delegates and the attendees, they form real relationships with people, genuine relationships, and that's what they're all about. It's a networking event, and they're just providing the tools and the framework for people to actually network amongst themselves. And you'll see it facilitates discussions as well. So genuine discussions which people can have through a LinkedIn page. One final comment about social media is that it's a really good listening tool, and if you're promoting a conference, you'd ideally like to be knowing when people are talking about you, blogging about you, when it falls outside of your own social media channels which you control. So what I would recommend is just getting a Google Alert set up for your conference, because it would be really useful to know if somebody's blogging in Sydney about the fact that they're thinking of coming to your event. You then get notified of that by Google, so that you can then visit that blog, maybe comment on it, point them in the right direction, contact them and thank them for blogging about your event, because it's those types of people, the bloggers and the tweeters and the social media advocates, that are going to really make your life easier if you get them on site and help them, allow them to do the hard work for you. So this will be my most boring slide, but it's the most important, and all these slides are available on a web address that I'll give you at the end, so you just need to jot that down. You can flick back through the slides afterwards. And there's actually also a white paper that I've written as a bit of a how-to guide for getting started if there's some of you here who are new to all of these things, like a setup process.